right, so you're in the yard, throwing up, having a panic attack.
Yeah. So, yeah, full panic attack. Like I said, like not really anything that I've ever experienced outside of this, and so, but in that moment, I was thinking, okay, you know, I need answers. Like I'm very much like a right now person, and if I can't, either get a definitive answer or move something forward, I just feel even more panicked. And anyways, I the only person I thought to call was a surgical oncologist that I used to work with at Piedmont Hospitals, and I worked with him for probably 3 years, and he and I, had become friends and would go hunting together and stuff like that. But I hadn't talked to him in probably 2 or 3 years, and so I just looked up his number on my phone, called his cell, and this guy's in the operating room like all day, every day. So I was like, there's no chance he's answering. He answered on the second ring, and it was just like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And I'm just beside myself.
Aw.
I'm like, Kevin, I've been diagnosed with osteosarcoma. I have no idea what to do. I'm panicking, and I need to know if it's spread. And without skipping a beat, he's like, "Get in the car, meet me at Piedmont ER. We're scanning you from head to toe. I'll see you in 10 minutes." And
Aw.
so Grant comes and picks me up. We immediately drive to the emergency room, and I had full head to toe CT scan with and without contrast within maybe 2 hours of being diagnosed, and then and was able to get an answer to, it's still localized in your jaw. We don't see it anywhere else in your body, and so that allowed me to at least bridge the gap from Friday when I was diagnosed to Tuesday when I got to meet with the interdisciplinary team at Emory.
Woo. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, because I feel like, just based on what I know about people, is there someone who's hearing this story and they're in an in-between and they don't have that guy on their phone?
Mm-hmm.
Like that panic attack moment, this is obviously a very substantial crisis that you're having, but if someone's in a crisis like that and they don't have that guy on their phone, what would you tell them to do?
I think I think everybody I don't want to say everybody has that guy on their phone,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody, I think, has the ability to connect with somebody that can help them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people go into, I've been diagnosed and I need to like internalize and not speak and not tell anybody anything. Mm-hmm. I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, I need to get on the roof and start screaming what I've been diagnosed with and see who are the experts in this field and who can I, align with in order to be able to get the answers that I need.
You already did something that we advocate for, which is you called a tier 1. You called Grant.
Yeah.
You called Grant.
100% tier 1. Yeah.
Head your ass over here. We're going somewhere. I don't know where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time he got there, you already had a plan.
Yeah.
And I love that, because I feel like that is something that especially like most of our listeners, and because Will's here, we do have more men listeners maybe than we would normally have, but because most of our listeners are women, I do think women do tend to like, holy shit, because if you're a mom, or even this idea of like stressing everybody out with this big burden thing that I just got, I think like women needed to hear that. Get on the roof and scream it. See if you can find someone who knows someone who knows someone, because even if you don't have the guy's number in your phone, somebody in your network of social media or your friends, your closest people, might have that one connection you need to like get you there faster to that peace that you're looking for, to get you from Friday to Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's the personal advocacy side of it. I think, my personal experience, I think, like I said, we can go through how everything continued to progress, but, statistically speaking, what I was diagnosed with and how things unfolded moving forward, I think it's far beyond my ability to network into things. I think, God built me a very specific way and put me into a very specific situation and gave me the resources to be able to properly navigate that, so that my prayer is that he can then use this for good. And that's quite frankly why I'm sitting here. And so, so just to move back, we were able to get the CT scan with Dr. Wynn at Piedmont within a couple of hours. And, to your point, like calling a tier 1, I mean, there's a handful of people I always think, I'm going to butcher this, but I heard it on a podcast last week. Who's the first person that comes to mind if you're, arrested in a foreign country and you have one phone call? Who are you going to call? Yeah, exactly.
Like, what does it cost?
I'll literally, I'm flying there right now. I've called my attorney.
Yeah. But those are the people who are like, the ones who are action oriented, that are going to, they don't care what, other people, like what the rules of the game are. It's
honestly,
like,
it's the moment you need the friend who tries so hard to fix everything for you. This is when you need her or him. You need that one friend who's like, I made the 5-point plan. I got it. Don't worry. I've called the attorney. I've got a guy that's probably a doctor for dogs, but he's going to call somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is the thing you need, is like in this moment where you don't know, having those people around you, like your wife who's like, great, what's the next step?
Yeah.
And Grant who's like, I'm driving you to Piedmont. And the dude who's like, I'll CT scan you right now. I mean, like, how great is it to be surrounded by those people who will stand in the gap for you when you're like, holy shit, my life is blowing up.
Yeah. And that came to fruition even more on a much bigger scale as I continued to go through this, and really be able to, always knew that I had a lot of people around me that loved me and a great community of people. But to see that in action was like one of the biggest blessings that came out of this entire situation. And so, so just to, again, like, we finished up at Piedmont, and I'll never forget sitting in there with Grant, and I was like, had kind of calmed down a little bit. I remember we did the scan and we're waiting for the results to be read by the radiologist. And so I'm sitting in there, I'm waiting for the radiologist to read the scan. Normally it takes a very, very long time to get those results back. Dr. Wynn fast-tracked it for me. But I remember sitting there, I mean, it was just me and Grant, and I remember looking at him and just saying, coming to this like crazy realization of my mortality and the fact that like within the next 10 minutes I'm going to get an answer as to like how long my life is going to be. And
what crosses your mind in that moment?
Well, I remember looking at him and telling him, we're all going to die. And I think like we all know that, but to be like force fed that in a very high, like intense situation, it really was like almost like a peace came over me, in a strange way where it was, and I think it was God like calming me down and saying, regardless of the outcome here, this is going to be okay. And that was almost when I don't want to say gave up control, because that's what I need to do. I think practically it's very difficult for me and my personality to do that. But I think I was given a peace in knowing that regardless of the outcome, it's going to be okay. And
so you talked about faith a lot. I want to ask a question about that, because I do think, was your faith a big part of your life before your diagnosis? Were you a very faith-forward person? I mean, we talk about this as a big anchor for just stability in people's lives, to believe in something much bigger than yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it was something that like, I think I have a much bigger, a much like broader view of it now, because it's been tested, and so like when I say broader, I mean I can look back at when I was growing up in in high school and in college, and then when I lived out in Denver and so on and so forth, and I've always I would consider myself to have always been a Christian. I think I had never really had my faith tested per se, and it got very real very quick for me. And
You think you got closer to God?
well, oh yeah, yeah, for sure, and yeah, definitely. But what I will say is, when I say like got very real very quick, I have never been one, and I've always had a really hard time with people who give their testimony, not because it's not their testimony, it's not true, but because it's never been my experience. When somebody says, I had some experience with God and I was immediately saved and my life was totally different from there on out. Like, for me, faith is very much like a muscle that you have to flex constantly, and you have to not work at it, but you have to really try and seek God and be present and try and experience God on a personal level. And if you're not, for me personally, if I'm not consistently doing that, it's difficult for me to feel close to God. And so I think I was put into an incredibly intense, difficult situation where I didn't really have any other solution or option outside of I was on my knees, on my face, like crying, screaming to God. And I don't think it was an immediate answer. I think it was, okay, we're going to walk through this, which I'm certainly not out of the woods yet. We're still walking through it. But this is going to be a very, very long process where you're going to be tested, and I'm going to have the ability to experience who He is every single day. And that's been like a really cool thing for me, because I think, quite frankly, up until this point, like I would consider my life relatively easy.
Even with the spank and spoon.
Yeah.
Even with the spank and spoon.
Okay, and I'm going to say this because I wonder if somebody's listening who might be thinking it. What if it were the opposite? What if the diagnosis, what if we weren't sitting here and you were having this okay, I'm not the same scared throwing up in the front yard moment, but what if the diagnosis would have been different and you're on a path? In case somebody's listening to this and they don't have the same hope lens that you have in this moment.
Wait, sorry, I'm not sure.
Like if the scan had come back
Yeah,
worse?
I mean, because I think where's God in the story when it's not the story that you have?
Yeah.
Ask it in a different way.
Are you saying if someone is still in unknown or worse?
I'm saying, what if the diagnosis was it spread all over your body?
Oh, got it.
And then in that moment, what would you tell somebody? Would faith still be a big part of the journey?
Yeah, I think I think it has to be. I think that I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. I think that the person in that situation is probably going to have similar feelings in both of those.
Yeah.
And so I think faith is going to play a role in every single situation, regardless of whether it's metastasized or not.
You think your faith would have gotten stronger regardless is, I guess, my
way.
question.
Yeah. I mean, I think the short answer is yes. And, but the cool thing, and my prayer from the beginning has been I want God to use this for good. Doesn't make a difference. It's not up to me to determine what that means. It's up to me to do what I said earlier, which is, show up every day, keep, flexing that muscle, trying to be close to God and seek God and spend time in the Word and learn as much as I can, and then be able to apply it to the situation that I'm in. And by no means am I, I mean, I'm not a theologian, or I'm not super well versed in the Bible or anything, but the first, well, I'll back up. So I was diagnosed on a Friday, right? Got the scan with Dr. Wynn. The very next day, I call my best friend from Denver, who's my roommate out in Denver, Dan Burks, just to tell him the news and what I was diagnosed with, and he, stopped me probably like a couple of minutes into my explanation, was like, "Hey man, I'm not super familiar with what you're talking about, but I think my sister-in-law, Brittany, specializes in this. And keep in mind, this is 0.06% of all cancer, okay? So, and he is like, she's sitting next to me. Do you mind if I put you on speakerphone?"
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, sure. What, like, I know Brittany, but I thought she was like an ENT doctor. And technically she is, but she's highly specialized apparently. And so he puts me on speaker. Brittany, is like, asked me a series of questions. She's like, "Send me your pathology report." I email it to her. They're in the car together. And we have an hour-long conversation. And she's like, I'm a head and neck surgeon at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona. We are a center of excellence for sarcomas. I specialize in exactly what you've been diagnosed with. Here's your prognosis. Here's the surgery that you're going to have. We're going to get you scheduled for Thursday after you meet with Emory. So you meet with Emory on Tuesday. You fly out, meet with us on Thursday. So again, diagnosed on a Friday. I had all that. I had that entire conversation within 12 hours of being diagnosed. And again, 0.06% of all cancer. And Brittany Howard just happens to be sitting in the seat next to my best friend, which is just beyond any type of like networking I could ever do.
What did she say the prognosis was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So osteosarcoma in general in the long bones is probably about a 50% cure rate. Mandibular osteosarcoma is better. It's still not great. 75% cure rate or survival rate, which is what I was diagnosed with, and that was my prognosis, and essentially still is.
So it wasn't like that big of a deal.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like,
So I should only feel like 25% bad for not taking the meeting with you.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's so funny. Like I remember flying out there and meeting with them. They're like, "Your prognosis is actually really good. 75% cure rate, survival rate." I was like, "So you're telling me if I take like 4 balls and put them into a bag and one of them's red and I just draw one, like I might die?" And they're like, "That's one way to look at it.
Basically.
Look at it, yeah."
Yeah, because 75% does sound really good. And then as soon as you think of 25% chance, like if you told me like you're going to walk outside and you have a 25% chance, I'm like, I'm not going outside.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I'll just stay
There's no
inside.
chance I'm going out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And just to be clear, like that's still my prognosis. So I'm not like, I need to make it to 5 years before and after, every 12 months it gets better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So then what happened once you got like with the full team and met? What was the plan and what did you start doing?
Yeah, so bullet point the treatment because he's gonna have 9,000 questions once we get to the tissue in the mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
Because our last segment is laughter, and I cannot wait to get to the.
Oh, well, I got pictures if you want to see it.
Oh, Lord.
So that happened. The other thing I do want to touch on around, faith is, so that happened on Saturday. On Sunday, we get up, we go to church, as a family, like we always do. We get there, and they just so happen to be preaching on finding joy in hard situations. And in particular, exactly like what the sermon was on was a meditative series by John Piper called Do Not Waste Your Cancer. And I actually have the series in my car that I meant to bring and give to you guys. But it's basically 12 points that walk through how not to waste your cancer. And so again, I'm diagnosed with this rare form of cancer on a Friday, talk to Brittany on Saturday, go to church on Sunday. The sermon is specifically about how not to waste your cancer and how to find joy in that specific situation.
Whoa.
And so the whole thing was just like crazy. And my cousin's husband, I remember what he said to me that day, John Alexander, who I've become very close with. I mean, everything was still like super fresh.
Were you crying in the middle of that sermon?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would have been bawling out. Like, did somebody call y'all and
crazy.
tell them?
Yeah, it was the whole, like, my whole family and my cousin's family there wasn't a dry eye. And, but I remember him looking over at me and saying, something to the effect of, you're 38 and you're going to look back on this and think, I'm very lucky to have experienced this at the age that you did, because a lot of people don't get to have this kind of realization until they're on their deathbed. And
what's important and how to be grateful, and because everything matters when all of a sudden you find out 25% chance that you might not be here.
The red ball.
Especially
to see your children grow up, to stand beside your wife through all the seasons,
and having a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and a wife, and just being where we are right now in our lives, like, I try and really, really soak in where we are now, as opposed to before. It was 100%, not 100%, but very much focused on work and moving forward and progressing and how much money can I make and
getting the next thing,
the next deal,
and the next thing,
and now it's like my entire perspective has changed to, man, I just want to sit down and watch my kids play in the backyard and chase each other and laugh and have fun. And, and we live a very modest lifestyle, and I've learned to, like, really, really appreciate that, and just kind of rest in what we have and be super thankful for everything that we have. And really, like, the ability to raise our kids in a house where they feel super secure, very safe. They come home, they play with each other in the backyard every single day. My wife and I get to make dinner together and sit down at a kitchen table with the kids.
Are those things that are different because this happened?
I think those things are, I don't think they're different. I think that they mean a lot more.
You're awake.
I'm very much awake and aware of, so this is funny. I made a post on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago that the first thing I've ever done that ever went viral. And the opening line of it was I do not own a Rolex. And, and I remember thinking, I used to be so into, just like my outward appearance and just stuff.
What you could get.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, like, when you idolize those things, you kind of lose perspective on everything else, in my opinion, or for me at least, I did. And so, I just go back to, like, being able to really appreciate the life that we have, even if it is, we don't live in a 4,000, 5,000 square foot home. I mean, we have what we have, and I have 2 happy, healthy little kids and an amazing wife that love me, and that's, like, and a God that loves me and supports me, and that I can really lean on my faith. Like, that's awesome. That's a great life.
So how'd they fix you up?
Okay. So,
And wait, is your tongue still sewn to the side of your mouth today?
no,
Okay,
no,
it's free.
Came apart.
Okay.
Yeah, it released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So treatment had to go through 6 rounds of chemotherapy. The chemo was every 3rd week, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And yeah, so, and it was not fun. It was it was just not fun. So anyways, made it through that. That was about 4.5 months, and then in January 21st, I had what's called a fibular flap reconstruction. And so,
Okay, wait, and just as a heads up, he just showed me this. Actually, Claire said, "Show her your shark bite," and I said, "Holy shit! Did that not build your faith enough when you got bit by that shark?" But actually, it's just from the reconstruction. It wasn't a
Just my
real.
Show will.
Yeah, show will.
I saw it as we were walking out, but here's the thing. I told my wife as I walked outside, I was like, yeah, Annie got bit by a shark. I'm about to find out about that. Because I was just walking out the door, and you said, show her your shark bite.
I know.
Nice.
So I was
I
like,
literally was like, God, you're a walking miracle. A shark bite and you beat cancer. I tell you what.
What a year. What a year.
What a year. What
but
a
I
guy.
very seriously. So we were down at the beach in Grayton recently, and the number of really children, but I've had like 2 adults be like, "What happened to your leg?" I'm like, "Who asked that?" Not that it offends me, but
It
I
would
just think
be
it's
me or
strange.
Will, probably.
And-
We would be those people.
God.
But
He would. If you were
I've
drinking
thought
beer
about,
beside him on the beach, he would.
Having beer beside each other.
But I thought about getting just like shark bite tattooed at the top, so
I-
people just stop asking.
I like it.
Yeah.
It does make you seem very tough. I was extremely impressed.
So yeah, January 21st after chemo had fibular flap reconstruction. The way that works is, so they went in, you can probably see the scar on my neck. They did
Definitely looks like someone tried to cut your throat when you
pretty
turn
much,
to the
yeah.
side. Yeah.
And so
It's almost like ear to Adam's apple, like cut, like as if someone was slicing your neck.
yeah,
That's what
essentially
happened.
that's what they did, and they turn your
Oh my God.
and then oh yeah, sorry. So they do the incision, basically invert your face, and they made a resection right at the midline of my jaw, removed essentially from here to here.
It's like chin to mid jaw.
Yeah,
Gone.
and then they take your fibula. And
That's in your leg.
which is the small bone in your leg that stabilizes your knee and your ankle. It's really non-weight bearing, so they don't replace it, and
So
and they
shark
use
bite,
that-
no bone.
use
Got
that
it.
to rebuild your jaw.
Oh my God.
And then I'm definitely still in the process. I have to have a debulking procedure where they go back in, they remove all the tissue, and then I'll get my fancy new teeth, which I'm going to
Thank God
have
for
the
that
consult
fibula.
for after this.
For
yeah.
that fibula, you're going to be able to get those nice ones that they
Yeah.
drill in.
Exactly.
So after a
Which,
little,
hang on, time out.
Yeah.
Shout out to Vulcan Dentistry. That is a plug because they're doing it at
Actually, they're
cost.
going to have to pay us for
Kate-
that plug.
Caitlin
I'm just
Caitlin
kidding.
Grimes, who is a dentist in Birmingham that I've known for a long time. And to put a number on this, I went to Emory and I was quoted between $50,000 and $70,000
Yeah.
to have, because United Healthcare is awesome, and they deny they say
Everything.
it's not medically necessary to have teeth, which is great. And
What?
Yeah.
Thank God
So-
for our medical insurance
This has been in the
arena.
news.
Yeah, it's
which is
so bad.
So, anyways, Caitlin Grimes in Birmingham, amazing dentist, doing great work.
And I feel like when you, like, just to swing back, because I remember when this all went down and Claire shamed me for never having the call with you. And she's like, way to go. I hope you heard about Beau's diagnosis. But then I know that your community really mounted up around you and wanted to make sure that you guys were, and I loved seeing that. I mean, it was really, you know, you think it's not going to happen to you, but to know that people really will show up, like you said, was just like, amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty great. I mean, like, to really, like, touch on that, I mean, the amount of family and friends and people in our church and just from everywhere that rallied around me was truly incredible. And you know, it was a super scary time because I wound up just working through the entire thing, but at the time I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep my job. You know, my insurance is tied to that, so just the whole thing was very much up in the air. My best friend started a GoFundMe and raised almost $100,000 to, you know, because again, insurance doesn't cover a lot of this. And
well, and you don't think about that, like, but even keeping your job, like, it's those unexpected, because it costs a lot, and a lot of this, well, one, it impacts your credit if you can't pay for it. I mean, there's like all this stuff you don't think about.
There's a huge ripple effect that comes with a cancer diagnosis.
Well, and the treatment, because of all the other areas of your life that it affects, which is a whole other episode. Sorry, I could go rabbit trail down that too. But.
So they do the reconstruction. They have to tie your tongue to the side of your mouth.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
It was the whole situation was crazy. So, yeah, like when I woke up, I had a tracheostomy, so I couldn't talk. I just had a whiteboard that I could write on for like a week.
Literally my nightmare.
My tongue was tied or sewn to the side of my mouth, so I was just like, and I also can't feel anything over here anymore, including the right half of my tongue. Wow. And so the whole entire thing was just very confusing, like trying to relearn how to talk, learn how to eat. You know, I was like super swollen, still am. But initially, like for the first 2 or 3 months was just like trying to learn how, like the basics again. So yeah,
I'll say this because like, and people can see this on YouTube if they check it out or on Instagram or whatever. But like when Claire said, yeah, he's had his jaw removed. Like when you came in, I was expecting you to have like half of a face kind of situation.
So you look great. You look great.
No, we're honestly, it's much more like, oh wait, you've had some procedure. Like you really can't tell much, right? And even that scar we described, you have to lift your head up to even show that. So it's not like looking at you, it's obvious something's happened. It's not.
Yeah, you don't look like what you've been through.
So I want to say a couple things. So many, but I'm going to try to narrow it down because we're almost out of time. But first, if you're a friend that is going through something with someone else, if you're a tier 1 to somebody, so I was in the midst of a training the day that Beau got his diagnosis, and I was with his mom, and I remember feeling so helpless, and I was like, all I can do is sit by her and drink this terrible box wine. Like that was like the best I could do. And then the next day she went to go be with Beau. I was going to stay at her house, and I went into this training, and I was just like zombie because it's a really helpless feeling. And this woman came up to me, and I told her, I was like, hey, you know, my friend's going through this. I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't feel great because I don't know what to do. And she came and sat by me, and she was like, just sit in it. Like with that person, and we would like do you remember FaceTiming me in the middle of the night?
yeah.
And that's what I would tell people, and don't be scared. Be like, what do you need? Like, do you want me to call you? Do you want us to come over? And that person can tell you what they need. So after Beau's surgery, I drove with my mom and his mom when he was back in Atlanta because he had the surgery here. And that was a trip just riding with them. They're like answering spam calls. And I'm like, oh my God, like, God, please don't. So we get there, and y'all have seen me gag. I got that from my mother. I did not gag over any of this, but I'm like, well, let me see it, you know, and the shark bite was very new and fresh. And it was just this like purple scab. And my mom's in the corner going, and I was like, just leave the room. Like, how rude. Okay. Next day we go to breakfast. Beau wants to like go eat in public, and he has stopped chemo. Hair's starting to come back. And remember, they have taken skin from his leg to create a new jaw. Well, my mom kept saying, I heard her on the phone to my dad saying, he's got a lot of tissue still in his mouth, so they have to take the tissue out. And I'm thinking, she thinks gauze and it's skin. And I knew what they meant. So we go out to breakfast and we have finished eating. And he's like, well, my hair is growing back, but it's skin from his leg. And so it started growing like man leg hair in his mouth.
Even more than is normally on your leg.
And he's like, y'all want to see? And I'm like, hell
in your mouth?
Stop.
all of that was
This
like there.
so this just isn't something I'm like comfortable talking about. I'm just joking.
April Fools. We didn't talk about April Fools. So I'm like, let me see. I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. And Mom's like, well, I'll see. I thought she was going to vomit at the diner.
Oh,
like, she's like,
Steph.
ugh, like could not tolerate it. And
Why
I'm like,
is she this way?
I'm like, he has been through a lot. He's just got like, look at the leg hair. Lighten up a little
Does
about
that go
it.
away? Does it stop happening?
So
Katie shaves it every night.
Oh
Just
my
kidding.
God.
no. So the way that works is they take your fibula and they also take all of the tissue that's with it, including, so like if I open my mouth, what you see in there is a big, what's called a flap of tissue that is the exterior of my leg, and so including the hair and everything. The next procedure that I have, which is the debulking procedure, they go in and they take out all that tissue. Then they have to do laser hair removal while they're in there.
So if you thought we were going to make out now,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
were wrong.
Yeah.
Over.
Katie is a
Let
very
that
lucky
die.
lady.
The things she gets to experience
I
that
know,
none
I
of
know.
us will.
But that's how. But so they'll do a laser. removal.
Yeah, so by the
wild.
time they finish, it'll all be gone. But right now, yeah, if I open my mouth, it's a hairy mess.
Okay,
Easy to tell.
last question because we have less than a minute. What did this do to your marriage?
I mean, like, I think like going through something like this with somebody, I thought the other day about like how long Katie and we got married in 2018, like how long we've been married and just where we started, where it was like, super fun and just what being, young and married and in love is like. And you add 2 kids to the mix, you add a mortgage, you add daycare, and then you throw a cancer diagnosis onto it. And it's like it's almost like something you can't even really put into words. Mm-hmm. It's just you're super, super connected to that person. Mm-hmm. And it's, I'm just so fortunate that God put her in my life, because I think she is like the definition of the yin to my yang. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm like hard, like go hard, drive hard, high highs, low lows, and she's just like super steady. And so yeah, I love her a lot. I'll just say that.
Obviously. Okay, wait. I do have one more question. I know we're out of time. How did you laugh through since your diagnosis to here? What role did laughter and levity play in making it through? Because we talk a lot about how important it is to man. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta laugh it out.
Well, I had a lot of people around me that are just hilarious and just good, like, keep perspective people. Mm-hmm. And they came from all over. Dan Burks drove in from Huntsville. Adam Newquist came from Athens. I had our entire group that we do an annual football trip with, all my friends from Denver. We were supposed to go to Wisconsin. They canceled plane tickets, hotels, everything, and instead we went to go see Georgia Tech and play Miami. And you know, and they all these people would come and sit in the chemo suite with me, and it was great. I mean, it like totally, I don't want to say normalized what I went through, but definitely lightened it up a little bit. And so I don't know if we were in there like, you know, cracking jokes, but well, I mean, oftentimes we were. I mean, like having Dan come down, who's like one of the funniest people I know, like sit there and have you know, just conversations with me and spend time with me like we always have was amazing.
Okay, one more. What would you say to the friend who has a friend who just got a diagnosis that they're going through something really hard? What was the most helpful thing that your friends did?
Probably what Claire said, which is, you know, when something like this happens, most people don't have answers. Brittany Howard happened to have answers, and that was great. And she helped me, and that was amazing. And Dan facilitated that, and it was awesome. A lot of people, Hunter Williams, Adam, Grant, they drove in town and just stayed with me and just sat with me.
They showed up.
Kept showing up. They were there the day I let my kids shave my head. We all took turns. All my buddies were shaving my head. We made it a thing. And, you know, like to know that you have people that are there with you that are going to walk through it with you, good or bad, regardless of the outcome. It was just really, like, I want to say like humanized the entire experience. It like made you really feel deeply who cares about you and how strongly they care about you, which was amazing. So.
I feel like some of the things that I've heard over the years of people who have gone through big diagnoses is like, or somebody loses a child or whatever, people disappear because they don't know what to say. And so they just don't show up. And I think like the importance of just showing up and doing literally nothing, just be there. But I also like, it's why I love having friends like Claire, because I know she's going to talk shit to me. It doesn't matter what I'm going through. She will crack a joke. It doesn't matter. And I love it. Same thing with Shelly. Like Shelly's going to be like, oh, your mom's sending more cat pictures. Got it. Never talked to you, but she sent you that picture of that cat. I'm like,
well,
yes, she did.
I think Claire is an awesome example of that. I mean, I struggled big time. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night at like 2 or 3 in the morning and would just like be overcome with what I was diagnosed with. And you mentioned it earlier. Like I remember FaceTiming at 3 o'clock in the morning, just melting down in the bed. And I can't tell you how many people offered that to me and were like, call me any time of the night. I have my phone next to the bed. It is not on silent. Like I will answer if you want to
Claire
call.
was actually up already drinking coffee.
Actually, I was pretty close to it, but actually, his mom had this house sitter that was staying there, and she died while she was watching his mom's dog, and it was in this bed. And I was like, "Well, Diane, did you get a new mattress?" She's like, "Beau asked me the same thing. They're so expensive. It really wasn't a mess." And I was like, "Huh." So, I had been listening to like a murder mystery at night, and then I'm like in this room, and so like I was up because I was scared out of my fucking mind. And then when his mom left to go see him, I had to go sleep in her bed because I was like, ooh, like I just like couldn't do it.
Hey, we're really thankful you shared your story with us.
So
it was
much.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity.